Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today is an episode with my buddy Nate Tutas where we talk about how to think differently about sales. And the topic today is the common mistakes that salespeople make that cause them to lose business. And we discussed 5 of these ideas that range from how to make a first good impression and business acumen, as we really get into that, and how you as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a business owner need to help your salespeople understand how to think about quantifying the problems that you solve, and that we really need to step in as business owners to help our salespeople get better at this, because salespeople traditionally don't have the business acumen that they need to carry the day. So go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigars. So Nate, welcome to Sales and Cigars, How to Think Differently About Sales. I wish I would have checked to make sure, like, this has got to be, we got to be close to a year into doing these, right?
Oh, at least a year that you and I have been doing it.
And as I said in the previous episode, we really shouldn't be missing months of this because I catch shit from some of our listeners. I don't have 50,000 downloads a month, but the people that are listening, one of the reasons they're listening is because of these episodes. So we got to do a better job of staying on top of this. This is my fault, not yours. So what I wanted to talk about in this episode is some of the common reasons salespeople fail. Some of the common reasons salespeople lose deals, and losing deals, I know, is the wrong way to say it, because you can't lose something you never had. But when they don't win something, there's usually some common themes, right? And as Curlin has so nurturingly told us, who are OMG partners, that if you lose a deal, it's because you did a shitty job of discovery. And I can't argue with that, because it's usually the case, assuming that it's a deal that somebody was the right person to begin with, right? They were qualified.
Yeah.
But I think I'd like to run through some of these ideas that I had. I've been sort of cataloging things over the last couple of quarters, and I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts, and maybe we dig into one or two of these. One of them is that salespeople just don't have good business acumen. They don't understand the finance. They don't understand, ROI, especially in the context of their prospects and their customers. I think another one is that they simply just don't provide valuable insights. They don't provide helpful information to their customers, because they don't truly understand their customers' business. They haven't done the work to understand the industry, what goes into the space. They don't speak the vernacular. So those are 3. A really simple thing that anybody should be able to do is, like, show up when you say you're going to show up, do what you say you're going to do, be freaking reliable, right? Be that customer service person. I know in my past life, I've won business simply because I showed up on time. And I literally had a prospect say, "What are you doing?" Like, "Well, we had a 2:00 appointment. I know I'm 5 minutes early, but you want me to wait?" And he's like, "No, like, I've called 3 of you guys and you're the first one to show up." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you want to do?" And, I got business simply because I showed up. Woody Allen says it's what half a life is just showing up and doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other one we talked about in the last episode a little bit, but they spend too much time talking about themselves. They're trying to build this rapport and make this connection and this friendship, and it's not it it's perceived like they don't do it to because of vanity. They do it because they think it's important, and they don't really value what the prospect values in their time. I mean, I think a prospect, like, if they give you 30 minutes, you better give them 45 minutes of value. And that starts with respecting the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 5 things there. You pick off the menu. Where should we go first?
Well, I'll start with the very last point that you noted, specifically to respecting the other person's time, because that is a major sticking point for me personally. I'm a big fan of, this Dan Kennedy's book, No BS Guide to Ruthless Time Management for Entrepreneurs, which is all about controlling your time. It's one of my absolute favorites. But
he is ruthless.
He is ruthless.
If you have a 20-minute call with him, he hangs up at 20 minutes, whether you're talking or not. He's done.
Yep. Which I'm a fan of, right? But that being said, we also, part of it comes from my time in the Marine Corps, because we had a rule in the Marine Corps and a phrase that they grilled into us over and over again, amongst many other things. But it was, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're already late, right? And part of that actually comes from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, because he always talked about the military general that arrives at the battlefield early will always have the leg up, because they can see how the other
comes together.
Military is approaching, how, all those different things, what route they're taking, how tired they are, they just get a leg up on everything. And I always looked at that the same way, right? And I always looked at, I'm going to respect my customers' time, my prospects' time and whatnot, and I'm going to be there. And not only am I going to be there so that, one, I can get into the right mental state, right? Because if you're running late and you're in traffic and you're running and rushing to get to an appointment, and even if you're right on time, you don't have that time to actually reset and get your brain into the right state to go into that, focus solely on the customer and focus solely on how do I bring value to this meeting and deliver that back to them. You're thinking about, oh crap, I'm running late and I gotta get in here, and oh yeah, what was it that we were going to be talking about, and where are my notes? And that's not a great way to start out for anybody, let alone a prospect in a business relationship.
Disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's disrespectful if you think about it. If with your friends, show up late for an event, for dinner, for, like, if you had a 6 o'clock reservation for dinner and somebody shows up at 6:15, screw them.
Mm-hmm.
In my world.
Yep.
I remember 25 years old, New York City, Fortune 500 company, meeting the CFO. I had the guy that owned the company that I worked for with me. We're standing in the lobby waiting for this guy to show up. We had an appointment at the top of the hour. 10 minutes past the hour, my boss says, let's go. Before cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. I'm old. So I'm like, what do you mean go? Like, he's not here yet. He's like, I wait 10 minutes for anybody, 11 minutes for no one.
Mm-hmm.
That stuck in my brain. And so you fast forward, like, that afternoon, the CFO called me and said, like, what the hell? I showed up and you weren't there. I'm like, yeah, we left after 10 minutes. Well, I was like 15, 20 minutes late. Yeah, well, we wait 10 minutes for anybody, 11 minutes for no one. Mm-hmm. I just repeated what the boss told me.
Yep.
And the CFO said, what? I'm like, 10 minutes for anyone, 11 minutes for no one. He goes, you want my business. Like, I do, but what do you want from me? We couldn't just sit around and wait for you. I didn't know if you were showing up or not. Mm-hmm. That created a level. I mean, it was sort of a dick move, if you will, but that generated respect with that CFO that, like, okay, we value our time because we were going to do something. Mm-hmm. And he's like, is there any way you can come down there this afternoon, blah, 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 right? Yep. And we ended up working it through and closing the deal eventually, but that stuck with me. Being respectful of other people and being respectful of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I to this day, I'll wait. But today it should be 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, because we have the technology to text somebody. Like I got a customer who's like long-winded. Give me 3 minutes. I really apologize. All right, I'll wait for that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's common courtesy if you are going to be late, because things do happen, things do occur. But if it's going to happen, then you at least say, hey, you know what? I've got another appointment that I'm supposed to be at. I need 2 seconds to just text this person, call them, whatever, and let them know I'm going to be running late, because I don't want to disrespect their time. I want to make sure they know I haven't forgotten about you. You know, it's there. For your boss and for the CFO that was running late, in my mind, that's them putting their time at a higher value than yours, which I just spent 4 outstanding days last week with Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-founder of NLP. And one of the things that he says commonly, and I absolutely love the phrase, is that time is the currency of living. Right?
Time is the currency of what?
Living.
Okay.
It's currency of life, because it's also the only thing you cannot get back. Right? You take the CEO of a Fortune 100 company that is, pardon my French, but balls to the wall, Mach 3 with their hair on fire, but doesn't have time to spend with their kids and their family and whatnot. And you take them out to the end of their life when they're sitting on their deathbed, and the one thing that they will say that they regret is that they didn't take the time to spend with their kids and their family. And to a certain extent, a lot of them will say, yeah, I wish I actually would have had a lesser role, a lesser job, whatever, so I could have been the person at home spending time with my kids and family and things like that. Because time is the currency of living, and how you spend your moments is how you spend your life, right? It's
all choices.
Yeah.
And you get to make the choice.
Yep.
And, you know, in the context of salespeople put themselves in a hole because they beg and plead and like, oh, can I get an appointment with you? Did I catch you at a really bad time? I'm really sorry, right? No, my time is just as valuable as yours, because I'm going to deliver value to you. And if you don't believe that, you're in the wrong job.
Mm-hmm.
I sent a doctor a bill, right? I went to the appointment. I had an appointment at a particular time. I showed up 10 minutes early to fill out paperwork. I was there on time.
Mm-hmm.
I sat in that waiting room for 30 minutes. And I went up to the little desk. I said, you know, I had an appointment at 10. And yeah, he's running late. Like, I'm leaving. You can't leave. Watch me. And I sent that doctor a bill for a half hour of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get paid.
But you got the point across.
I think I did. Because the doctor actually called me.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I got this cute little bill. Like, okay. You have the address to be able to send the check? He's like, I'm not sending you a check, but I understand what you're saying. He's like, you realize that you're not my only patient? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm the only patient that I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have an appointment at 10 o'clock and you're running 5 minutes late, somebody says, hey, Walter, he's got a thing. And you know, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you expected me to wait to whenever you needed me to wait. And there was no courtesy.
Yep.
So, and I think that applies salespeople. We don't respect our own time. So we're not really respecting our prospects and our customers' time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think that leads to something that we've talked about in the past, but I believe in an upfront agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm talking to a prospect the first time, it's like, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity for us to kind of get to know each other and see if we have a fit. I'm not sure yet if I can really help you. So I'm going to have some questions. I want to cover A and B. I think you told me you wanted to cover C and D. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover? No? Okay. Where would you like to start? Because we only have 30 minutes. And then it becomes my job to play timekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's a great way to start off. I control the meeting. I set the agenda. I'm respectful of everybody's time. Salespeople don't do that. I'm all of a sudden elevated. It's not rude.
Mm-mm. It's professional.
It is, but some people think it's it's rude. And I'd like to kind of talk through that with you, because you have a higher EQ than I do. Despite being a Marine and despite being high D and
I'm
all of
doubting
that,
that, but okay.
you can fake
That
it
may be the
better
first
than
time
me,
that's ever
maybe.
been said, so I'm glad we have this recorded.
But let me rephrase. You can fake it better than me. Is that
Okay.
better?
Yeah, I did. My one semester in college was for acting, so I'll go with that.
Acting, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My professor was actually a regular on Seinfeld too. He was a pretty big deal.
Who was the character?
Oh, someone would ask me that. I'll look it up and I'll send it to you, because
Okay.
I'm not a huge Seinfeld fan, aside from now I'm even blanking on their names. George
Kramer.
Yep. So I'll have to do some research and come back to you with who that was.
Okay. Because it's just a rabbit hole we went down. We didn't really need to go down anyway. So I think controlling that conversation, respecting our time, respecting our customers' time, these are all important things that we need to do as salespeople. And I think that building rapport is important, but we do that by being respectful and being a professional. And if you're in somebody's office, you can spend 2 or 3 minutes trying to be polite. But if you're in a virtual call, really everybody's doing back-to-back calls these days. So get to it and deal with it. So you get to pick out of the other ones that I brought up. Where's another one you'd like to go, Nate?
I think the lack of business acumen is one we definitely could dig into, because that was one that we had kind of talked about a little bit. And I feel like that's one of those that gets put out there a lot. I see a lot of social media posts on how salespeople need to have better business acumen. And I know I personally spent a lot of time going, well, what does that even mean? And how do I figure that out? And like, there's no book you could pick up that's like business acumen for salespeople, or what's the common title, business acumen for idiots. There probably is a book on that. If not, I should write it, because it makes sense.
Yeah, we could write a book on that. That would be
we could.
It would be of value.
It definitely would, and that's an area that I think we definitely should dig into, because I feel like there are a lot of salespeople out there that truly would like to have more business acumen, but at the same time are at a loss going, what does that mean? And how do I make it applicable for me so I can actually leverage that business acumen when I'm in the right context?
Okay. And I think that's the right way to look at it. How do I understand what business acumen it means as it relates to a sales call? Because you don't need to be able to read a P&L and discuss it with your chief financial officer. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how, and that's helpful, right? It's a value add, but if somebody's running a P&L, you should know what that means. And somebody has budget responsibility, you should know what that means. So I believe that the CEO, the president, the hiring manager should assume that the salesperson that they just hired has no freaking idea what they need to know when it comes to business acumen for their prospects and their customers. So what I recommend to our clients when we do sales hiring for them, is that in the onboarding process, one of the several steps that are required is that the CEO spends 2 sessions with the new salesperson. And I'm saying the CEO, it could be business owner, it could be the president, I don't care. But it's the person, it could be the founder, right? But the person that's up there at the top that understands these things better than anybody else. And they can get in the head of their customers and their prospects. And they should be able to help that new salesperson understand how to talk about their service, their product, their differentiators as a company as it relates to the problems, business problems, the financial problems. How do we quantify, right? Because one of the things that we teach in baseline selling is, that they need to quantify the problem. We've identified a compelling reason that somebody should do something. All right. What is that? All right. So we figured that out. And then we get to the step where the milestone where it's like, quantify this. How do we quantify it? What questions do we ask? And I think the CEO can do that. I talked to a guy a couple of months ago, and he had a problem I could solve, and it was costing him $50,000 a month. We quantified it, $50,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. I'm
like, Bob, that's $50,000. It's a lot of money. He goes, oh yeah, it's a lot of money. Every month. I'm like, yep. Is that big enough problem for you to solve? I didn't make an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it is a big enough problem. I need to solve it. However, I have a problem that's costing me $500,000 every quarter. And I'm like, do tell. So we just talked about that problem. I could talk to him about the problem. I could understand what the problem was, but I couldn't help him. And I'm like, Bob, I can't help you with that problem. And that's a way bigger problem than your little $50,000 a month problem. I mean, $2 million. I mean, shit, it's a ton. I can't help you. I know a guy. If you haven't got a strategy for this, he's, well, who do you know? And we had that conversation. I'm like, I'll make an introduction, and maybe he can help you. But can we reconvene in a couple of months to come back and have a conversation about your $50,000 problem? Now, if I didn't have any business acumen and I didn't have any understanding of quantification of a problem, because this was money, it was time. I mean, it was like risk that was involved. And so I had to take all of that, put it together. And then I had to do one other thing: have empathy for that customer, that was a bigger problem. Right. And I wasn't going to whine and complain and try to get them to fix the little thing. Right. You got to fix that, man. You really got to fix that. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to me, that's what business acumen is. So aside from the CEO helping that conversation, what do you see that you've done in the past to be able to help you understand business? Like when you were in the packaging business, or, you've had a couple of different roles, how did you gain that understanding? Hey, thanks for being part of the Sales and Cigar community. I wanted to share that I wrote a book, The 7 Critical Mistakes CEOs Make with Their Sales Organization. The CEOs who've read it tell me I cut to the chase quickly, get to the point, explain exactly what they're experiencing, why they're experiencing it, and how to fix it. So if you want a free copy, go check out the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview.
Well, the one thing is that I was blessed with, in my early days of selling, the company that I actually worked at, we were in safety, right? So we were constantly having to go back, and we were selling systems that were upwards of $500,000 to install. I mean, they were big purchases by some of these companies. And the safety manager, the EHS manager, had to be able to compute and deliver back to the company why it was worth investing that much money into a safety product that wasn't going to make them any money. Like the fact of the matter was, it was either going to save them money because they were about to get fined by OSHA. It was going to save them money from the potential lawsuits and insurance.
Mitigate risk.
Exactly. It was all about mitigating risk. So I had to learn, how do I quantify this in a way that basically is the case of, hey, your risk is that this happens, and all it has to do is happen once. And here's all the things that could potentially fall out from that. It could be the death of a worker. It could be a lifelong injury of that worker where they're immobilized for the rest of their lives. Which is
actually worse than a death in a certain sense, financially.
Yeah, I mean, depending on there's multiple different ways to quantify that one. I mean, I literally just got done watching. Mandy and I last night watched a documentary on HBO that just came out, it's called The Boy Who Lived, and it's about Harry Potter's stunt double, who in the filming of the last movie, they did a simple stunt that it was a simple pullback where all he does is stand there and a wire pulls him back, and they had miscalculated the weight, and for some reason one of the safety checks didn't take place, and he snapped his neck, and he's now paralyzed. He's been through, I don't know, 10, 12 surgeries. I mean, it's you're watching it going, here's this guy that was this awesome stunt guy, like top of his game, top of the world, working on this great movie, and life as he knew it was over in an instant. And he shared the story, and it was very, I mean, it's a sad, endearing story all at the same time, but I had to be able to communicate how that worked out so that when they looked at our costs and they went, ooh, $500,000 for this piece of equipment, for this system that guys are going to come in and install, or geez, this could cost us $2 million bucks if it happens once, let alone a countersuit, let alone this, let alone what I'm going to have to live with on my mind going, this person's injured and has been injured and I could have done something to fix it, those kinds of things. So I had a good foundation from that perspective to be able to dig in and understand what those elements were.
Because you covered all of that arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time,
yep,
money, saving and making, and risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything falls into those three buckets.
Right. And if you just took those three buckets as a salesperson, though, and when I get into other industries, because I did change industries, when I got into those other industries, I leveraged the fact that I have a bit of a baby face, and I could say, hey, so you'll have to forgive my ignorance, but can you help me understand how this plays out in your world? Like, I know, and I would relate how it was in my previous job, and then go, but I'm kind of confused. How does that work for you? Like, how does that work in packaging when we're talking about this and that and the other? And I've heard some of my colleagues say that, like, if we put an automated packaging machine in place and it replaces 8 workers, then that's, their salary times whatever. And I'd have the person go, oh, no, it's not just their salary. It's the salary. It's the FICA. It's the 401k match. It's this, it's that. And it was like, oh, so it's not X amount of dollars an hour. It's X amount of dollars plus blah, blah, blah. That changes the calculation a little bit. And how often do those, and then you'd start going into quantifying, how often do those workers call in sick? And what does that mean from a production level? And our production drops off. And what if that happens during busy season? And you started going through all those different questions, and all of a sudden you were building a business case around, holy crap, we can't afford not to get this system now, because that system is going to help us in times where we absolutely need it and we can't have any downtime. But I was able to sort those things out by literally focusing on time, risk, money, how all those three things kind of tie up and tie together. And I leveraged the fact that I could ask the customer for their feedback on that. So I would encourage any salesperson that's out there, yes, get with your CEO. If you're a sales manager, I'd be drilling my sales team going, okay, so we're, driving along and we're heading out to lunch or whatever. So tell me about a scenario where you saved a customer money, and how did you help to quantify that? And I'd be, as a sales manager, going, did they dig into this? Did they dig into that? Did they focus, whatever is applicable to their particular business. But you want to make sure your salespeople know that.
The sales manager needs to do that. Absolutely. But a lot of people that listen to this are founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs. And I think that they need to make sure it's their responsibility to make sure that their sales leaders, sales managers, their salespeople get it, understand it, right? Because sometimes you got people that have skills, but they're not willing to put in that extra effort. And if you push this idea and you help them understand why it's important, you give them the why, you connect the strategy to it, and you connect them like, this is how you do it with these, these 3 or 4 questions, and it opens it up. Because it is work to go through and quantify it, because it's math, right? And it's a great exercise to do with a customer. Like, hold on, I'm right. I got to write this down. Like, I can't do math in my head. I'm just a dumb sales guy. And you start writing things down. Like, you got a calculator, and what is this and this and this and this? Because it's not algebra. It's not calculus, luckily for us. And you you're just adding things up, and like $50,000, is that a lot of money?
Mm-hmm.
Of course it's a lot of money, but is it enough money to do something about it? Because I mean, you have to ask the question.
Yep.
And that's where salespeople get stuck. They're afraid to ask the question because, oh, that might not, but that's how you take it to you get that credibility.
Mm-hmm.
You elevate that professionalism by saying, by diminishing what it is that you're offering. Like I was taught as a Sandler guy that gets a negative reverse. Like $50,000 is not something that you're going to do something different. You're not going to change what you're doing to save $50,000 a month. Right. And now they have to be able to defend that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a technique. But the thing is, if you don't understand how to get there, so if you're a salesperson and you want to get better at this, you have, I don't care who you work for. You can walk into somebody in the C-suite's office and say, hey, I'm a dumb sales guy, and I'm trying to quantify the problems we solve. That might be the CEO, that might be the CFO, that might be some, VP of sales that's 2 levels above you. If you walk in there and say, hey, I got a question, I'm trying to understand this quantification process, you're going to have instant credibility within your organization, because nobody's going in there and saying, hey, I don't know this, I need help.
Yep.
And those people are going to think of you like, all of a sudden you go up in their mind. They're going to give you the data that you need. They're going to give you that time. And then you're going to get access to that person down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to notice when you start closing more business because of something that they help.
Yep.
You got to go use the information.
Yeah,
and that's what you did.
There, yes. And there's a couple of things I would add to that. So you mentioned that the CEO should be having at least 1 or 2 meetings with the salespeople to talk about that. One thing I would add is I would film that and make that part of your standard operating procedures so that A, salespeople can go back and review that video, and B, you can figure out where there's gaps. Because you may film it the first time for a salesperson, and then it may be the second or third time that you're going through it, and you might go, shit, I've been leaving out this big piece of the puzzle, and I need to add that. But when you do that, that then becomes so that if a salesperson goes through it once, great. But if they can go back, and I have a tendency to watch things on 2x speed, 2.5 times speed, so that I can get through things real quickly. But I'm the type of person, I'll go back and review that a couple times before I go in to meet with a customer, so it's fresh on my brain. And then when I go in and meet with the customer, and I know I'm a total nerd with that kind of stuff, but I'll go do that so that it's fresh on my brain, and I'm going into the call with my ears already tuned in to listen for those things. The other thing,
you're not a nerd. You're a heightened professional. I don't know what we call it, but
we call them nerds nowadays.
You're the guy that's making money doing and able to teach that to other people. So,
well, and the other thing that you can do there too is I'd recommend you get the CEO and you get the top salesperson at the company to do that as an exercise, whiteboarding it out, because the CEO may find out there's stuff that the salesperson's tapped into that he wasn't even thinking of, he or she wasn't thinking of, and vice versa. The top salesperson may go, oh, interesting, I was never looking at it from that perspective. And you might get some subtle nuances that can be enhanced there.
Yeah, there's gold when you involve a whiteboard. There's gold when you involve somebody recording it, so there's pieces of it, and you just, like, I've been telling CEOs to, like, all right, let's just record a video of how you do this and record a video of how you do this. But the idea of taking that to that next level, and like, because now they're willing to do that because it makes their time, they leverage their time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's still in that new relationship with that salesperson, they can hear it from that person, and they get that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can go listen to that video and go listen to the other video. Those are really powerful. So,
well, and that's also a great exercise for a sales meeting, as the sales leader to just hold up the marker and say, okay, come up to the whiteboard. We're going to role play it out. And I'm going to have you, whiteboard out the math on what the problem is, quantifying it. And let's start the conversation. Here's the premise. I'm an XYZ customer. This is what I've shared with you so far. Take it away. And
role playing things out is practice, and it's not done enough. But I think the other thing that a sales leader and a sales manager should do a couple times a year, once a quarter, with intent, with purpose, with a specific topic in mind, invite the CEO in. Mm-hmm. Don't tell the salespeople. Don't tell them.
Yep.
And say, here it is. I mean, I had a class, a political science class I took in college, and professor was a nerd. He had worked for several presidents, and the last session, he didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell anybody it was happening. So if you didn't show up on the last day of class because it was the last day of class and there wasn't really going to be something there, he invited Jerry Ford, President Jerry Ford, into the last class. So we're sitting in this huge hall, and all these guys wearing black suits come in the side doors, and then all of a sudden from the stage, Jerry Ford walks in. Hey, professor, how you doing? And he did 20 minutes on politics and did Q&A. And for the 75 of us out of the 250 that were in the class, we got an audience with an alumni, a president, former president of the United States, and you can say what you want about him as a president. But I can tell you it was wildly entertaining and memorable. And college was a long time ago for me. I remember that. So, But bringing those people into your meeting and asking them to share their insight is going to change the game for everybody, because it's not just you talking about it, like they're hearing it, and those guys are going to bring a different level of experience to the party. So, I mean, I know we didn't cover all 5 of those. I didn't have intent to cover all 5 of those, but I think, again, salespeople, they need to be focused on having that idea of elevating their skills, right? We talk about it from a perspective of elevating the sales profession. That's one of our core values. But it comes down to the individual wanting to get better. And if you look around your organization, there's people that are having success. You can go talk to them, whether they become a mentor or not. Go get a nugget, right? This podcast, there's nuggets that are dropped throughout this conversations that you and I have, other guests have, that might resonate with somebody. And just reading a book, listening to a newsletter. You have a newsletter that is insightful, that gives people insights to getting better at their profession. And if you're not trying to get better, you're staying in the same spot, which means you're falling behind. So we have to update this, Nate. We have to update how people subscribe to your newsletter. So we need to have that in the show notes for this episode. But any last thoughts here that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think the biggest thing is kind of like we've talked about throughout the entire episode. And really, I think it goes back to the theme of this series of thinking differently about sales, right? I think if we take a step back and we think about some of these core issues and we think through, how do we actually affect them for our team? How do we affect them for others? It really comes down to that being professional and saying, how do we improve in each of these areas, breaking it down, and then going, cool, a simple thing like recording a session where we talk through how we actually quantify a problem for a customer can then be reused over and over and over again and can be improved on and perfected. And now you've got a tool that many times I've been in positions where a leader of some sort says, well, why doesn't the salesperson know this? Or why don't they understand that? And it's because the salesperson, 1, didn't know to go find that information, and 2, they didn't have it. But if you have those things there, you eliminate the excuses. So
I mean, I have clients who are like, I told them this. How many times?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I've told them that at least once. Okay, you're salespeople. Have you ever tried to teach your child to walk? And if they didn't get it the first time, did you give up on teaching them to walk? It's not a perfect metaphor, but the point is, it takes sometimes more than one little conversation for people. I've taken lessons in golf. I've taken lessons in tennis, and I had a tennis coach who she was like, she said the same thing to me 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
She literally said the same thing to me 5 times in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth time, oh, got it. Why didn't you say that the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she was very nurturing like me, and she drilled me in the chest with a tennis ball.
I like this gal.
You would.
Sounds like she would have been very effective.
She was very effective, but because she had the tools to go to get it to like my dumb brain. Now, what she didn't have was the NLP ability to know that Walter needed to hear this in a way that resonated with my dumb brain. But once she hit it that time, I'm like, oh, you just want me to lean forward and be on my toes and get the racket in this spot,
mm-hmm.
and not be right on top of the thing, right?
Yep.
And I remember the lesson. I remember exactly where I was on the court. I remember exactly where the court was, and I remember her looking at me like, you asshole, and she just like drilled, and she hit me square in the sternum, and I didn't miss many volleys after that. All right. I appreciate this. I think we're a little over time. So my folks, but we added a lot of value here for salespeople. If you want to get better at something, there's opportunities to call Nate, call me, to talk to people in your organization, to understand those things from a business acumen, from the story that how we differentiate ourselves. Take the balls and go walk into the C-suite and say, hey, I don't understand this. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And those people, if you're asking for advice, I mean, you might be the wrong moment, but they'll come to you. They want to help you.
Yep.
So thank you.
My pleasure.
I love sharing secrets when I figure them out. That's why I created this program called Sales Hiring Secrets. Early in my sales management career, I was terrible at hiring salespeople. They failed more often than not. Then I discovered the secret that you can't hire salespeople the same way you hire everyone else. That's why everyone fails. In Sales Hiring Secrets, I'm going to teach you all of the secrets to understanding what you really need your salesperson to do, how to attract an ideal candidate with a unique job posting. I'll teach you how to save time and money by only interviewing candidates that are a good fit. I'll share the secrets to an interviewing process that ensures success. And the one big secret that everybody gets wrong is how to onboard a good salesperson so they ramp up quickly and stick around. I'm doing the Sales Hiring Secrets program on a monthly basis. You can click the link below to figure out when the next Sales Hiring Secrets program is scheduled, and you can sign up. Click the link below, and you get all the details. And it's designed for you to bring your entire team so you can get everybody up to speed quickly. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you on the other side.